are back. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for sticking around. Getting started a little bit late. Blame yours truly. I'm Nathan the Barbarian, your humble host, and welcome back to the Hot Mic Podcast. Today we got Tarris Horton with us, Phil Heimlich, and my homie in this endeavor, Kevin, the voice of reason, Aldridge. So let's get into it, everybody. Listen, if you have been checking out the podcast for a second, just take a and you like what we're doing here, we've been doing it about 5 months. And if you could just hit us with a like or a share, just to let more people in on your page or wherever you may be see what we're doing here. So let's get straight into it. As you can tell, I'm a little bit under the weather, so might have to take a little bit of a back seat and let you guys off
I
today.
know for a fact you don't.
It's the
Hey,
best. It's
excuse me.
against my better
I know
judgment,
for a
but
fact you
that
don't take a back seat to anyone. So I'll believe that when I see
yes,
it.
I
I'll
do.
believe it when I see it.
Yeah, please. You just don't see
Yeah.
it, but the wifey runs this. So let's not get it
All right.
twisted. I already know who's in
All right.
charge. But how's everybody? What's up, Kevin? Phil? Terrence?
What's
How you
up,
doing?
gentlemen? Happy Tuesday. Good to see everybody. Good to be back on Hot Mic. Good to have the crew members in the chat. Good to see everybody there,
Absolutely.
and looking forward to another great show.
Yeah, let's get into it. So Cincinnati is going to be one of the, centers of gravity, at least for the next year or two, in terms of making national news. Man, just a real tragedy that the city is dealing with right now, where it looks as if, again, a real tragic chain of events that started with a stolen vehicle. Starts with a stolen vehicle, a pursuit by the Cincinnati Police Department. For those who don't know, the police, at some point, they get into a foot chase with the so-called suspects, and as you can see on the body cam, I could play some of it. I may play some of it for folks who haven't seen it already. But what you ended up with is the officer choosing to use lethal force, and he shot an armed black young male who, in my opinion, after looking at the video, looked as if he was running away and therefore not a threat. Let me just throw that in as we get started. But there's more to this story. Okay, what you're looking right here. Father of a man shot by Cincinnati police arraigned in death of deputy. So it appears that the father of the young man who was killed by Cincinnati police ran down a Hamilton County sheriff's deputy who, I'll be frank with you, that's not too far from where I'm broadcasting live right now in the Coreyville area. Apparently, this officer retired, was just doing what you see Hamilton County sheriff deputies do sometimes. Man's just doing his job, just doing his job. And this man right here allegedly ran him down with his car or with a vehicle. That Hamilton County sheriff deputy is no longer there. This man has had his first day in court. And what you might see a lot is there's a video of what appears to be all all of the Hamilton County sheriff deputies were inside the courtroom, and there was some mean mugging going back and forth. I mean, I've been reading some of the comments. Wow, this is interesting and quite incredible. But you know what? Who I want to kick us off. Uh, I think that there's a pyramid of responsibility and or blame. Because I like to get straight to it. And at the top of that pyramid, I blame the two or more than that. I think it was four people involved, three or four people involved who initially stole that vehicle from Kentucky that set this whole tragic chain of events in play. They all have blood on their hands. All of those individuals are responsible on some levels for the deaths that happened after their actions. I think right below that, for me anyway, and we may disagree on this, but below that is the Cincinnati Police Department. I think they failed the public. We talked about this a few months back on the podcast. These high speed pursuit chases, chasing people for stolen vehicles, and so that's exactly what's at the core of this. It's to me, it's just bad public policy that leads to situations just like this. And the father, there's a lot of people out there who are looking at this man like he's a hero. I see it all the time. I know some of you, if you're in the comments, you see it too. People are saying this man is a hero, and they're saying stuff like, "Well, hey, that was my kid." And if you love somebody, I get it. I understand it. I think personally, I'm gonna go ahead and say this. My friends on the CPD won't like this. My friends in law enforcement won't like this. But to me, this man was suffering from temporary insanity because he was so distraught from the death of his son. I
Hey
am not
Nathan,
accusing
your mic was kind of going in and out there, so I think people kind of
uh,
lost you a little bit when you
what was the
just
last thing you
getting
heard me
ready to
say?
say your friends in the CPD won't like what you're about to say. So you were about to. It was right when you
Yeah,
was getting ready to launch.
yeah. My friends in CPD won't like what I'm gonna say when I say this, but I think that the father, uh, and I'm no clinician, I don't have any kind of degrees, it's just one man talking. But to me, he clearly was suffering from uh, losing his son, temporary insanity. And unfortunately, he took it out on the wrong person. Right? That's what happened to me. This man, this sheriff deputy had nothing to do with it whatsoever. One could almost see, I'm not making an argument for it, but one could almost see if he had sought out the Cincinnati police officer who did this, that would kind of make more sense, which just leads to my point. He was probably out of his mind in pain and don't know how to deal with it and chose a very, very bad choice. And I think he should pay for that with whatever comes with it, if in terms of the legal ramifications. But then in terms of look at what happened. So you do something like this to this father. And again, I seen the family. It's just a really sad situation. But now here we are, and I'm not trying to be selfish and take us off of the real people and the pain around this, but politically, you got the Trump administration. We know their stance on police, and then this happens. And what will be the ramifications long term for black and brown people in general in the city of Cincinnati? Because law enforcement, and rightly so, is on 1,000 right now. They're on 1,000. So that's how I look at it. But how do you see it?
I like to.
Well,
You're,
can I just do a little bit of level setting before we get into it, Nathan? I mean, I think it's important to sort of note that we're all going to give our opinions here. We're all going to talk about the facts, but I would encourage all of us to also remember that we're talking about families here. We're talking about people's lives, and I think sometimes when we talk about these issues, we tend to take the human element out and forget that right now there are at least three families that are suffering right now and dealing with the tragedy of what happened. That's the Hinton family. That's the family of this officer who died, and look, even the officer who's involved in the shooting. And so we're gonna chop it up. We're all gonna have our opinions. We're all gonna say who we think it is that it is at fault. But let's all be mindful as we talk about this that there are a lot of people hurting right now. There are a lot of people in pain. I mean, if you've watched any of the reactions of the families or the deputies or people involved, there are a lot of people who are suffering and who are in pain right now. So my hope is that as we're chopping it up, as people who are listening to that, you know, uh, that we do our best to try to keep that in mind, even as we're giving our opinion. So with that, I'll step aside, let Phil and Tarris say what they want to say, and then I'll add my flow in after that.
I was going to say exactly what you said. It's like I know a lot of times on this in our programming, we say a lot of things, and I just want to. I mean, it hits real close to home to me because I'm number one a black dad. First and foremost, I'm a black dad, and I believe that us as a panel are charged at this moment be level-headed and smooth when we talk about this situation. So that's going to be my approach to this tone of this. Because I mean, when I saw one of our colleagues, Fanon Rucker, up there speaking, it hit me, man. It hit me because the passion he's speaking from,
Yeah,
when he's talking about his family and what he just experienced, that could be me, that could be you. I got sons, so when I'm thinking about this whole situation, politically, all that is out the door. I'm thinking about like what you said, Kevin, these hurting families, man, and the grandfather Hinton is who I'm gravitating all my energy to him and his praying self, and how he's handling things. Temporary insanity. I can't say brother Hinton, I can't say that he well, you can't say as a black dad, you can't say, but the grandfather Hinton, that man right there is the man who him and Fanon Rucker, in my opinion, that's who as black fathers That's who I'm leaning to. I don't want, and it's like you said, Nathan, about the CPD. I got a lot of clients who are Cincinnati police officers, and I'm interested to hear their take. But right now, it's like I'm thinking, as from a black father's perspective, first of all, they shouldn't have been stealing that car. They shouldn't have been stealing the car. But we want to get real. I've done it. I went joyriding before when I was a teenager. My sons have done it when they were teenagers. You know what I'm saying? My oldest son got caught stealing, spray painting building, had to go to Bluegrass Challenge Academy, and he got chased down by the police officer. Good lucky he didn't have no gunner. But you know what I'm saying? So this is a very, I like the tone of this, man. I think it's very important for us to take a very serious, and my approach is from black father stance. I like to hear, we're charged to give some good advice and opinions, in my opinion.
Phil, your thoughts?
First question, you said the video that I've seen was not a car chase, it was a foot chase.
It was.
So excuse me, are you saying, Nathan, I haven't read what happened. Is what happened before that they were on a car chase, and then what happened? They cornered the guy and then he ran?
That's not what happened.
Well, it wasn't a car chase.
Yeah.
What I saw was
a foot chase. Like a 6-second foot chase. It essentially, I think Nathan's larger point is not necessarily speaking to this situation, but just sort of this pursuit policy, whether it's on foot, whether it's in a car. I think that's his larger point. Right. Is that
that is my larger point.
I'm sorry. Well, I get the car issue because sometimes people crash and innocent people die or whatever. But you're saying, Nathan, that whenever the police confront a suspect, especially here in the case of this is a felony, they should just not run after him, just let him go?
I think that if they would have done that in this situation.
I'm sorry, if what?
In this situation.
If they had, if you're saying if they hadn't chased the guy, I understand that, but
okay, so let me answer your question. In this situation, had they just, we got the car and left it just like that and not pursued them, then none of this would have happened.
Okay, so is that your general position on any time they confront a criminal?
No, that's my general position when you're talking about the theft of an automobile. I just don't, when we're talking
so you're saying somebody steals an automobile and the cops confront him, the guy takes off running. Your position is,
let him go.
Keep the car and let him go.
And previous to that, I would advocate for no high-speed chases, right, for stolen vehicles.
Well, let's not talk. It's all within the same that's a different
sort of like umbrella.
No, it is not. It is not, Nathan. Because Nathan, the issue with the car chase is it creates a major danger for all the parties involved, as well as innocent.
I don't even think we need to get into that conversation, because I think it distracts from what we're talking about here. I don't think you need to get into the car pursuit argument. If the simple thing is if you feel like the police shouldn't have chased him, I think that's enough for us to have this conversation. I don't want us to get us derailed in a different thing, talking about police chases, to Phil's point, when that's not what we're dealing with here. We're talking about this situation. So I think the point that Nathan is making about he doesn't believe the pursuit should have taken place, I think that's enough. I don't think we need to get into this discussion about.
Right.
No, he's the one who brought up the auto chase. That's the only reason.
That's where it started. That's the crime that started. It started from a crime committed in Kentucky where they stole the car and took it across state lines. That's right.
There was no police. There was no car chase involved. So right. I think we're distracting from the conversation by we've already spent like 2 or 3 minutes on something that ain't got nothing to do with this. So go ahead.
I mean, there's a parallel to it, so I understand why you brought it up. But I'm glad you brought us back on the right direction. But yeah, to your point, I don't think that police officers should be chasing people down for stolen vehicles. Once you recover the vehicle, you got it. Because to do so creates a dangerous environment, just like what we see.
I would bet if it was your car and the police came back and said, "Hey, we got your car," and you said, "What about the guy who stole it?" "Oh, we're letting him go." I'm not sure you'd feel the same way. I certainly would.
It's not that you're letting him go.
Yeah, you
you're
are.
just choosing but see, with the way you're putting it doesn't really capture the real
It
intent
does
behind
capture
it.
it.
It's not really about the police will be letting them go. It would be the police are saying that
Then how
pursuing
are they
this
going
in
to catch him? How are they going to find the guy
let me
if they
finish.
don't run after him?
It's not that I'm saying or agree that you're kind of letting people go. That's not how I would look at it. I would
Well,
look at it
explain to me
more
why
like
they're not letting him go if they don't chase
I'm
him.
trying to
There
get
aren't.
to it. I'm trying to get to it. I look at it more like the police should choose to pursue in situations in which there's really more at stake than just recovering a vehicle that you've already recovered.
No,
You
the
see,
vehicle's already been recovered. It has nothing to do with it. Now it's whether you are going to apprehend somebody who committed a felony. And you're
somebody
saying
committed
no.
you say felony,
Yeah.
I say schmelony, right? I mean, felonies don't really mean that much, right? Look, the president of multi-felon. So felonies don't mean all that, right? Much. So what? It's a felony. It's a vehicle. Once they get the vehicle recovered, you got it.
So
That's it.
basically, you're saying let him go. Why do you deny
I'm
what you're
just saying
saying?
choose not to pursue in a
Okay, but
situation
that
in
what's the
which there's
difference
really
between
nothing
that?
at
What's the difference
stake.
between that and letting? What's the difference between that and
Here's the
letting him go,
problem.
Nathan?
Here's the problem
What's the
with that.
difference?
Look, the different. Let me answer this question real quick, Kevin. It's a difference in the way that you approach it. That's
Oh,
what the
come
difference
on.
is, Phil.
You're
Here's
playing with
here's
words.
No, no, we're playing with people's
here's the
lives.
problem.
We're playing with
Here,
people's
here,
lives, Phil. And that's why I'm saying when people's lives are in danger or at risk, I don't think that the value of an automobile
here's
is
the
worth it.
here's
That's all I'm
here's
saying. People
Well,
are
you
more
don't know
important
that
than
they
automobiles.
didn't know that lives were at risk till
yeah
the guy
here,
pulled
here
a gun.
Anytime the police is chasing anybody, that is a
The
mobile,
police should
like
never
what,
chase any
right, like
criminals.
a
That's your
mobile
position.
potential crime scene.
Well, your position is
here
ridiculous,
let
in
me
my humble opinion.
What's ridiculous about saying that you
It's
believe that
ridiculous
people
to
are more
say when we
important than
apprehend it when
automobiles,
there's a
Phil?
criminal and we just let him go, and that is what you are saying.
What is ridiculous about saying that people's lives are more
it,
important than an
it's
automobile,
not
Phil?
ridiculous, Nathan. But here's the problem with and we've kind of had this back and forth. Here's the problem with the logic is that to blame the police in this situation takes all the accountability off of the people who put themselves in that situation to begin with. You're talking about individuals who stole a car. They stole a car. And again, they committed a crime. I think to suggest that police should not be in the business of handling and dealing with crimes, I don't think is a position that any of us should be in. You also have to look. You also have
I
to
don't think
look
that's
at
the way I would
Nathan.
put it.
Again, I'm a firm person who is in. You got to take accountability for your actions and your decisions.
Exactly. And so
If
does this
you choose
Cincinnati
to
Police
steal a
Department.
car, you know that the chances are great. And again, wait a
We
minute. Let me
all
finish my
know
point,
that,
bro. I didn't
Kevin.
interrupt. I let you have your flow. If you steal a car, you have to know. And again, there are a lot of details out about whether or not the car was stolen and all of that. And so I'm basing this based on the information at hand. And if that information changes and we find out something different, then that obviously could change the opinion. But based on the information that we have, you know, if you commit a theft of a car, that the likelihood is great that law enforcement is going to get involved and you're going to have to confront that. That is a consequence of a choice that you make. So if the police show up on you, that's it. Another consequence of a choice is if you choose to carry a gun, if you choose to play with guns, there are consequences that come along with that as well.
That's the other part
If
that bothers
when confronted by the police, you choose to run and you choose to run with a gun, those are all decisions and choices that the individuals involved have to be held accountable for. Now, that's a different conversation about, well, should the police officer have shot him? Look, all of that happened in what did the police chief say? In 6 quick seconds. And it's always easy to sit back and Monday morning quarterback these situations. It's almost like watching a hit in an NFL football game. When you slow the tape down, right? You can always sit there and be like, oh, he should have pulled up, or he shouldn't have leaned in with the shoulder, or he shouldn't have done all of that. But these are like boom, boom plays, right? They things happen very quickly. And so we are trying to assess sitting back watching a video and trying to make determinations about what somebody should have done or what they should have.
Kevin, I hear you on that, but this is real easy from my standpoint. It is real easy. The police should not be pursuing people in a vehicle, in a helicopter,
I
in a
disagree with that.
van,
I
or on
disagree with
foot,
that. It
in
depends on
moccasins,
it.
on water.
Look,
They
Nathan.
shouldn't be.
Look,
They should
Nathan.
not be
Look, Nathan.
pursuing
Here's
people.
what.
And
Wait a
let me
minute.
tell you
Wait a
why.
minute, Nathan.
Let me
Wait a
finish
minute, Nathan.
my
Let me
point
finish
before.
my point. Here's why you're wrong. Here's why you're wrong. Because the police have to try to.
I will
You're
hear this.
saying after the fact there was no danger, but you got a young man jumping out of a car with a gun. The police don't know what he's going to do. What if? And I'm just saying here because you're talking about probable
open carry
situations
state.
as well. So this is the field we're playing on is what ifs right now. So what if this young man runs away and he's got a gun and he gets involved in an altercation with somebody and winds up shooting somebody with that gun and the police let him go? The police don't operate off of the thing that somebody running with a gun is harmless.
Let's run with that. Let's run with your point, your hypothetical, because I like it because it actually leads to my point. And I'm glad you brought up the issue with the gun. Ohio is an open carry state, unless you're a black man.
Ohio
'Cause
is
if
an
you're a
open
black
carry.
man,
Hey, look, Nathan, let's just keep it. Look, man.
unless
Look,
you're a black
here's
man,
what I'm not.
Ohio-
Here's what I'm not going to do
Can I
right
finish
here.
my
And
point?
this is
Can I
the
finish
part
my
of.
point?
These are the part of conversations.
Can I finish my
These are the
point,
part
though,
of
Kevin?
conversations that.
You just
Okay,
told
go
me not
ahead,
to
go ahead.
interrupt
But I'm
you,
gonna
but
break
you
that. I'm gonna
interrupted
break
me.
down your point
Exactly.
about why what you're about to say is
You
just
don't
is
have to
bad.
break it down, but let me get this out.
Okay.
Let me get this out. Ohio is an open carry state, unless you're a black man in certain situations. So when people say he got a gun, I'm like, and in your hypothetical, you're like, well, what if he got into an altercation with somebody and he shot him? Well, I don't know. It could have been justified. That's why this is an open
Okay,
carry
Nathan.
state.
So if he had an
And
open
so
carry, if
for
this
me,
young man had an open carry permit, which most people, if you have an open carry permit, right? Why am I
you
running?
don't need a permit
Why am
in
I
Ohio
running?
anymore.
Huh?
You don't need a permit.
What? It's,
You don't need a permit to open carry.
Well,
That's my
if
point.
I have a gun legally, I'll just say that. If I have a gun legally, why am I running?
Because you just stole a vehicle, Kevin. Come on now.
Okay, so
That's why.
Nathan, so
They're running
let's
to
put
get
one and
away
one together. Let's put
because he
one and
just
one
stole a
together.
vehicle.
Let's use some deductive logic here. Is somebody who
just
would
did.
steal a vehicle likely legally going to possess a firearm? I'm just asking you to do a little deductive reason.
I don't think that makes a difference. You ask me what they're running from. They're running from the fact that they just stole this vehicle and they don't want to get caught. That don't mean that they're necessarily about to go out there
But
and
the
commit
police
some
don't
other
know
crime.
that.
Probably
They
other
have
things,
but they
get
don't
another
know that
vehicle.
they have an obligation, Nathan. If you are running with a gun, the police cannot assume that you got an open carry legal and you ain't gonna do. No, they're good. Nathan, you're not being realistic, man, and not being logical in terms of how you want to look at this situation.
I'm being
And
very
this
logical.
is where I
I'm
say,
being
like,
very
if we're
realistic.
really gonna make some progress in terms of talking about Black police community relations and improving things, then we got to stop trying to defend indefensible situations and say and acknowledge when somebody
That's the
messes
wrong way of
up.
looking at
Now
it.
there are plenty of
Which
there
the
are plenty
family,
of
the guy's
situations.
his
There are
family-
plenty of situations where police use of force is not justified. And you could say that there are skeptical situations. And I'm not even saying this isn't one of them, but I'm just saying that we got to be realistic when we start looking at circumstances and say there's a certain degree of accountability that you've got to place on the people who put themselves in that situation. And the default can't automatically be police are wrong in every situation, because those young men, through acts of their own, not to suggest that it's the police's fault. The police didn't ask them to steal that car. The police didn't ask them to carry that gun. The police didn't ask them to run. In fact, what they asked them to do was to stay put, was to stop. They elected not to do that. And that decision alone led to the chain of events that we saw there. You can't take the responsibility off of the criminal.
I don't remember it that way. I thought he shot before he said freeze or whatever he said. That, to my recollection, I could be wrong about that. But that sounds
No, you
good.
can hear the cop say he's got a gun.
Okay, and I get
he's
it. I
running, and
understand. Black
and
man with a
it
gun
appeared
is the worst thing ever in an open carry state. I get it. I understand. I get it. But here is the problem with your line of your thinking, Kevin. And this is where Cincinnati gets it wrong. But it's going to be some smart people that end up doing, what we're doing right here is, it's both. I mean, I don't think you're going to find anybody out there, including myself, who is not going to say that those young men who stole that vehicle set this whole chain of events in motion. However, that does not mean that the Cincinnati Police Department doesn't have some room to grow, right? Because this situation is over with. What I'm looking at is the next situation. Like the next time somebody steals a car or vehicle, are we going to end up in the same situation? No. There should be a policy put in place that if it's just about a vehicle or something like that, hey, get the vehicle and you'll catch them somewhere else down the line in a less
But Nathan,
dangerous
it's
situation.
not just about the stolen vehicle. You can't take out of this situation that the fact that this young man is dead is because he had a gun. If he's just running from the police and there's no shouting of a gun or anything like that. Now I can't say this 100%. But he probably doesn't wind up shot. But the fact that
y'all can't say that. Hold on. You cannot say that at all.
I can't say that 100. You're right, Nathan. I can't say that 100%. But again, I have a mind, and I tend to like to use it. In which I say that all things being equal, if the kid doesn't have a gun, he probably doesn't wind up dead.
That's not true.
That is true.
That is not true. It's been plenty of black people.
Imagine what happens. He runs and there's no gun. I'll tell you what they would have done. They would have chased him and dragged him down and handcuffed him.
You don't know that.
That's what they would have done.
Yeah. See, no, we don't know that at all. In fact, it might be great odds that, there's a lot of unarmed black people that get killed running away from police all the time. There's been a lot of situations where police shoot an unarmed black person, but they thought they were armed. It happens all the time. So just like if we're going to use a hypothetical about what would have happened if the young man had gotten away, he might have used a gun somewhere else. We don't know what would have happened. But that's why I'm saying, if you don't pursue, you reduce the amount of bad possibilities from happening in that moment.
In other words, if you don't arrest criminals, you're saying if you don't arrest criminals, that's the best policy.
This is a liberal.
Not, Bill. I don't know how you got that from what I'm saying. Absolutely not. What I'm saying is, let's be smart. I'm saying let's be smart about arresting criminals in a way that doesn't put the overall community at risk. That's what I'm saying, Phil.
I just have a real problem with that because it puts the onus on. It's not the police who put the public in danger. It's the criminals. And that is the fallacy of your argument there, Nathan, is what you're saying is you're deferring to the person who has committed the crime and saying if they get away, then that's fine. As long as
for some crimes, yes, I'm saying
for a stolen car, yes.
Yes. Just like this, guys.
But again, you guys are missing the fact that here in this case, the death was not a result of the stolen car. The death was a result of the fact he had a gun. He had a gun.
It was a result of the fact that there was a chase. There was a pursuit. If there was no pursuit, none of this would have happened.
Mm.
Listen, there is a store downtown. What's it called? It's called Family Dollar. It's a Family Dollar downtown. And at some of these stores like that, they have security guards. If a security guard who may be armed sees somebody running away with a Snicker bar, I don't want you chasing them down using lethal force. I look at this the same way. That's a Snickers bar. You're talking about a vehicle. It's just not that important because there's so many things that could go wrong and you've already recovered it. You got the vehicles. So just get the vehicle back to the owners. And if these young people are doing dumb stuff, you'll get them somewhere else down.
Call it in. That's my point. That's the point I'd like to make. I think you just called it in and let the proper things happen that way. Because
so let me ask
what are the proper
things?
What do you mean? They get away. What are the proper things?
So let me ask this question. Y'all act like let him go. Let's find out his address. Let's track him down and let's get him the right way. What if he runs when you track him down at the house or wherever?
It looked like they were playing. It looked like he was.
Wait a minute. Let me finish. So every time a suspect runs, then the police just let him go. If that's the case, then every time I do something, I'm gonna just take off running, and I ain't got to worry about it because the police is gonna let me go, and they're not gonna pursue me. That is insane. What you guys?
It's not. I'm not saying that these guys that he does not have any. He's all to blame. But there could have been better policing, and I believe that's what Nathan is saying. Hopefully, hold up. They could have let him go. Hold on, Phil. When I start talking, just give me 30 seconds. What they could have done is whenever the guy who came up and was the shooter, he wasn't on the initial on the scene. He came up and pulled up, jumped out of his car, and he heard there's a guy with a gun. He's got a gun, and then he pursued. That's how it. And the guy came running out through it. And then they're saying that he was pointing. I don't know. I'm saying it could have been handled in a more mature, emotionally intelligent way.
Okay,
he could have been more. He could have not shot him. That's what he could have not. Unless that gun was pointed at him. Why did he shoot him? If he was running and they're going to break it down, Phil. They're going to break it down. Like Kevin said, we're Monday morning quarterbacking right now. But when they break this down, and if they do it unbiasedly, and they do it like they do it like with people who are not, because right now the Hamilton County Sheriff Department is on, like Nathan, on 10. I'm sure they got all their, because this guy was the guy who was the officer who, man, I feel condolences to his family the most, because he was a stand-up guy. He was the person who trained a lot of these officers, and he was just retired and getting some detailing work. So him and his family deserve a lot of prayers and condolences, but I don't think that the shooter is the one who we need to focus on. In my opinion, he should have a little bit. I don't want to know what his mind is at, where he's going to come out there and he's hot and he's ready to play cops and robbers for some teenage kids that got guns in an open carry state. Even if it's not open carry, the majority of these kids that are stealing cars and are in these gangs have guns. When they're going into police, when you're a police officer, you know this. And it's both of them, because the police officer just wanted to make it home, and this guy just wanted. It was a lot of mismanaged time. So, but I think that we should focus. Like, I don't know. That's my opinion. It's the officer could have held restraint. He didn't have to shoot him, especially if he's just coming up on the scene. If he's just pulling up, and then he's just pulling up and he shoots him, I don't think that's right.
But let's again, this is why I say, like, sort of like the Monday morning quarterbacking and looking at the video, everybody's going to look at it differently, right? We all understand that when we look at these videos, it's different. And what we all have to agree on is that none of us were in that one. None of us are police officers. None of us are trained to be police officers. None of us have been in that situation before. And secondly, you got to look at that video. When you look at it, the one partner is hollering, gun, gun, gun.
He's got
right?
A gun.
When he dips behind that dumpster, and he pops out of that dumpster real quick on the officer who shoots him. Now, if we're just thinking logically about if we're in that situation, yeah, sure. Some people will say, well, he could have taken 1 or 2 seconds to kind of assess the situation. But it's like, if your partner who you're relying on is hollering gun, 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 and somebody pop up on you like that 1 or 2 seconds that you're trying to take to assess it could cost you your life as a police officer, right? I'm just trying to bring a realm of reality in terms of thinking about it, because all of this, again, if you look in the short time frame that this happens, 6 seconds in terms of 6 or 7 seconds, however long it is, like, we're sitting here acting like you got all the time in the world to make a determination in a life and death, like, gun type situation. I mean, it sounds nice, but come on, it's like we said in the last podcast. It all sounds good till you find yourself in that situation, and what would you do when your life is on the line? And so I just think, like, sometimes we got to slow down on that a little bit and just say, okay, in reality and human nature, in terms of how police are trained and just being people. I mean, I agree with what the grandfather said. I think in both situations, you probably had a bunch of scared people involved in that. And that is what you get.
Mm-hmm. Right. I'm glad. I'm glad he said that because he's humanizing his grandson. Because a lot of people want to look at his grandson like he's just some stone cold killer. And to his grandfather's point, he's
Sure
probably
he was.
terrified and just wanted
Sure
to
he
get
was.
away. Which goes back to my point: is that if when the officer had rolled up, if their policy was, listen, we ain't doing no foot chases, right? Because at that point they didn't know there was a gun. I don't believe. We're not doing any foot chases for somebody who just stole a car and then jumped out and ran away. None of this would have happened. None of this would have happened. Vernon is very mad at us. He might have turned off. He says, no one here has never been a cop, but you know what they should do, armchair cops. And I hate that argument. I do, Vernon. Let me take you to the woodshed just a little bit here. I hate that argument because
I think maybe Vern took you to the
Watch
woodshed,
this.
if I may say.
I think Vernon might be thinking that too, but let me disabuse him of his folly really, really quickly. The reason why that doesn't make any sense for people to make that argument is because, we are the people that pay the police to protect and serve us. So I don't have to be a police officer. I'm a citizen giving my opinion about how I want the police to police me. If we've learned nothing other than that, from local activists, is that you have a right to let your voice be heard about the way that you are being policed. So you got every right to give your opinion about it and think ahead about what you think policy should be.
But Nathan, I'm
'Cause I
gonna
keep coming back to
push
policy.
back on you, bruh, and only going back to what
I'm
you
gonna push
said
back.
because you read me the riot act a few podcasts ago when I was talking about teachers, and you told me I was disrespecting because I had never been a teacher, and I was talking about stuff that teachers was doing, bruh, and you dressed me down in that podcast, told me that I couldn't do that, and I was being disrespectful. And I think the point that Vernon is trying to make is the same thing. Yeah, you can have your opinion. I had my opinion, but you told me my opinion didn't stand up to people who were actually in the classroom. So now, how are you flipping that and saying that because he's saying, hey, bro, you ain't been a police officer. You don't know about the training. You don't know about the situation. Yeah, you can have an opinion, but your opinion ain't as good as somebody who done it, which is exactly the argument you made to me about the teacher thing.
It's nothing like
it never is.
Can I address?
It's nothing like it at all. But the fact that you are holding on to this for like 8 shows, I will be prepared for this.
I want to talk about
future.
Holding on to it.
None of us are cops. None of us are.
Come on, holding on to it. What, he needs to see a therapist or something because he's got this root of bitterness?
Yeah,
hey, bro.
I
just strive for consistency, man. That's the only. I just strive for consistency, and whenever I hear inconsistency, I just got to point it out.
Yeah, none of us have never been cops. To Vernon's, none of us have never been cops. But like what we said when we first started talking about this situation, we need to address this as talking heads, as people who have podcasts and have a voice and have a platform to speak about from our perspective. Yeah, we're not cops, but Stephen A. Smith doesn't play in the NBA anymore, or he's never played in the NBA, but he's talking. So that's what we're in. To what we're doing is to give an alternative to mainstream media, Mr. Vernon. So if you don't like it, go watch CNN or Fox News or something. You know what I'm saying? Because I think that we're on here cooking. Just my opinion.
I'm with Tarris on this 100%. 100%. Don writes, Nate, don't you think victims of crimes want to see those that victimize them to be held accountable in the court of law? I mean, come on, Don.
I got something to say. First of all, I feel very bad that Kevin is being stigmatized by agreeing with me. This is going to really hurt his career and his reputation. So I'm very sorry about that, Kevin. But I will mention that one thing that I believe I read was that the family of is it Hinton who's that's the family it was the kid shot, that they didn't get out there and really make accusations, okay? And they actually said, if I recall, that they prayed for or were concerned about that deputy as well as their son and as well as the father. So I thought that their attitude of expressing care for all the victims, I think was breath of fresh air.
Can I say something
really
about the
nice.
generations?
Well,
The
I didn't expect
generations, like, because
anything
the
less.
grandfather, he's level-headed. He's level-headed. Pops lost it. In the YN was this I mean, it's 3 generations. I've seen this in three folds. The grandfather is handling this with class and dignity, and he deserves all the prayer and accolades that he's going to get for this. But then the dad, I mean, I feel him. You know what I'm saying? Like when he walked through that court, I mean, my police officer friends might get mad at me, but I feel him when he walked through there with pride. Not pride, but like no, I don't even understand I can't even, like, he wasn't backing down. They were in there to send a message, and he sent a message back. Like, what? Like, yeah, I did it. You know what I'm saying? And so that's the part, like, with Cincinnati being a hotbed, that we should I'd like to hear you guys' opinion on. I mean, it's like, wow.
So here's kind of what I think about that is, and I think, like, we really just got to take time to sit back and think, like, what sorts of things should we be applauding and what sorts of things should we not? I mean, to me, again, this whole situation is a tragic thing. And what I hate about this is, like, even part of this conversation is it does dehumanize people. It does dehumanize, as we're talking about the 18-year-old young man. We're still talking about an 18-year-old life lost, a young kid who made some mistakes, who made some bad decisions that unfortunately cost him his life. And there's no steeper price that he can pay for the result of his actions than the ones that he paid. And most of the time, what any of us can hope for, you can hope for as a parent, is that, and I say this all the time when I talk to young people, is don't make mistakes that you can't recover from, right? When you think about the decisions that you make, always try to make decisions so that you don't make mistakes that you can't recover from. We all going to make them, but you hope yours are not the ones that you can't recover from. He made some mistakes that now he can't recover from, and that is unfortunate. And we don't want to lose sight of that and vilify this young man any more than he needs to be vilified. For the father, I'm sensitive to the father. None of us can imagine what it must be like to watch your son get shot and killed by police, and what that does to somebody who might already be dealing with some mental health issues. There are some reports that not just that this was a crime of emotion or passion, but that he might have had some other mental health issues that were even precluding this. I don't know. That'll come out. Might ultimately wind up saving his life from having to seek the death penalty in this situation. But at the same time, there's no way that anybody should be endorsing what he did, cheering what he did, saying what he did was okay, because he took the life of somebody who had nothing to do with the death of his son. And I just don't give a crap, who gets mad at that. But there's no way you're going to get me to say that what he did is anything that should be applauded, cheered, or whatever. And if we have degraded ourselves as a society to that point, then that says a lot about where we are, as individuals, as a country, as individuals, or whatever. The police officers showing up in the courtroom, look, I just have a hard time.
Oh, man.
I just have a hard time with anything, with saying that anything. I feel for the father. I sympathize with him, but I just cannot be on the side of people who just want to applaud that, because I just don't think on any level that should be anything that we endorse or that we think is an acceptable way of doing it. I don't care that he stuck his chin out or lifted his head up in the courtroom. He killed a man that had nothing to do with his situation. That's not anything, as far as I'm concerned, that we should be applauding or be looking at with anything other than feeling maybe sad for him and that it's come to that for him, but it's not a point of pride, at least not for me.
But Kevin, you're the voice of reason. I've been because I was wanting to make sure I was really versed on this subject. There's a lot of people who are not reasonable right now. There's a lot of people that cannot wait till that bond is ready so they can donate to his GoFundMe. So there's not a lot there. So I understand your voice. And I have the same sentiment as you. Is I feel like this guy needs to stay where, like wherever. He does not need to see the light of day again, in my opinion. But that's just, but there's not a lot of people who think like that. They're about to cake this man up and get his criminal defense. And look at this now, and what I'm saying. I mean, it is Cincinnati, like I said, like I've been saying for a long time. Is this going to be the place that it sets off? Is this going to be because Louisville was that way in 2020? Is Cincinnati going to be that way 2025? I mean, it's seeming that way.
Yeah. All it will take is for Trump or Vance to pick up on it, because this situation can fit right into the type of narratives that they would like to paint new cities. It would fit right into that, and I wouldn't be surprised if you see that. Sure.
Can I share something? I've talked about the church I go to is Crossroads, kind of a big mega church. And the pastor, Brian Tome, was talking about, first of all, he was talking about they have a pretty extensive prison ministry. And he made a comment, which I thought has a lot of truth to it. He said, any of us could have done something in the spur of the moment that could send us to prison for life. And, there's a lot of truth to that. Now, that doesn't matter. I agree 100% with Kevin that this guy, that father, obviously I feel for him, but he has to be held accountable. Now, if they want to try to prove temporary insanity,
What about Luigi, the guy who that's what I'm hearing them comparing this guy to, the Hinton guy to, the Luigi guy who took out the CEO from,
Luigi wasn't an immediate emotional thing like the law.
But if you correlate,
this is a guy,
figureheads, CEOs denying people of healthcare. CEO.
Okay, so what's your point about Luigi?
He was.
What's your point?
Upset with the figurehead of CEOs of the healthcare. This guy was upset of seeing black men taken out by police officers, whether it be his son or with a.
They're both being prosecuted.
My point is, there comes to a point
being prosecuted.
To what I've said lots of times on this program, and especially like when I was talking about when the Ku Klux Klan came, and I was like, they should have rolled on them. There's not a lot. There's some people who ain't on that turn the other cheek. They're about ready to ride, and this could be something that sparks it off, like the Luigi thing. And I'm bringing the correlation to the Luigi thing. Luigi got hundreds of thousands of dollars donated to him. Hundreds of thousands of dollars through his legal campaign. He's got people, a fan club behind him. And the chirping that I've been hearing on TikTok is there's going to be some people who are about to put some bread behind this man. If they give him a bond, they're going to post the bond. They're going to get him out, and they're going to be. And they're going to
I think we'd all disagree. I think we all say that is wrong. And that guy, even though we may not like the health insurance companies, what he did was wrong and has to be held accountable. And I think we're saying the same thing here for the father. And I think to some degree for the son, who was unfortunately a connection. In both cases, people have to be held accountable.
Yeah, I'm saying that people are going to give him some money. People are going to start funding this thing. They're going to fund it. They're going to fund it.
So I don't know if we'll have time to discuss this later on in the show. And I guess my overarching point is, I feel what you're saying, Tarris, is that there are some people who, like you said, who are going to ride like that, who are fed up. They're going to be people just like in this case of the lady who tossed the racial slur and she's getting all of this money in the GoFundMe. There are going to be people who are always going to support the most deplorable or detestable acts and actions and or people who are out there. There's just that part of society for people who are out there who are going to do that. The larger question is what is our larger community? What does our larger community reflect? What do you as an individual want to reflect? To me, it's as simple as this. If you believe that what happened to that 18-year-old boy was murder and that it was wrong, then you have to absolutely in the same breath believe that what his father did to that police officer was wrong. Because to me, it's simple and clear cut. Either murder is wrong or it isn't. I don't care whether it's for somebody you like or dislike or whatever. if murder is either wrong or is not, regardless of who commits it, right? And that's the problem that I have, is sort of this situational justification for things that we stand for and that we don't, whether that's in our politics or whether it's in situations like this. You either stand for what's right or you don't. And to me, it's that simple. And so when I'm looking at these situations and when I'm talking about these situations, I'm coming at it not from a standpoint of where I'm unsympathetic. I'm sympathetic to everybody in this situation, unfortunately. But at the end of the day, we're all in control of our actions. We're all in control of our faculties. And at the end of the day, we all got to live with the consequences of our actions.
Well, the Hinton family says not that cut and dry. And so they have now got the services of a law firm behind them. I think it's the Cochran firm. And they're looking, it looks like the Cochran firm is going to do their own investigation. They're looking for answers. And I don't think it's that cut and dry either. It's like I said, I think there's a gap there in their policy that leaves a blind spot, not even a blind spot. It leaves a gap that something like this can happen again and again for a vehicle. For a vehicle, it's just not worth it. I mean, there might be a time for an officer to be chasing people down the hall, down through the bushes, but for a vehicle is not one of them. For the officer's safety and for the safety of the community as well, it's just not a good idea, in my
Nathan,
opinion. But we live in a society. We live in a society where we value our trinkets and our cars and our things like that. And again, for some people, their car is their lifeline. It's not just about a trinket or some kind of luxury. It's a necessity. I get it. But we put property over people over and over and over again. And I think that the city needs to realign their thinking about that and close that gap. No pursuits for vehicles. It's just not worth it.
Again, we can agree or disagree on that, and it looks like we will. But I can't continue to say that I think you misrepresent why this young man wound up in the situation that he was. It wasn't just the stolen car was the impetus that led to his death. But when you jump out of a car with a gun, that's just what I'm saying, that when you do that in front of the police, bro, the police just ain't going to let that. They're just not going to let that go. Like that to me, that's different than a foot pursuit over a candy bar or a foot pursuit over a stolen. You jumped out of a car with a gun.
It depends on the police and it depends on who jumped out. It depends on the gender and the race and the circumstances. But that ain't that cut and dry. Like I said, I mean, we saw what happened. It was like the young man dropped the gun, so that now it's out, and he's running trying to get away. Officer says that he pointed the gun at him. Now, what I thought was interesting is I watched most of the press conference with Police Chief Thigi, I think it is, and they always do the same thing in these press conferences. The police chiefs, they always do the same thing, which is all the information that fits their narrative, which in this case was very clear that the officer did what the officer was trained to do and it was a good shooting and all that kind of stuff. She answered and went in great detail for all of that. But there was a reporter that I thought was asking some really, really good questions. And he asked a question about whether the other officer on the scene saw and can corroborate the story that the suspect turned the gun toward the police officer. And then when that question was asked, she said, well, I don't want to get into it. The investigation's ongoing. I'm like, that right there is a really, really great question, right? Because if the other officer says, I didn't see him point the gun at him, well, then somebody's
Well, not
lying.
necessarily, Nathan. I mean, here's what I'll say about this, and this is what makes these cases so very difficult, is it's about your perspective. It's about what you see. And we all know the situation. We've all done the experiment. We've all had the situations where, hey, we're in a room and somebody comes in and they do something. And then you ask everybody in the room what they saw. And some people saw this and they missed other details and this, that, or the other. this is the exact type of scenario that you're talking about in a much quicker, much shorter time frame. And so just because somebody didn't see something that somebody else saw doesn't mean that somebody is lying or that it isn't factual. It just means I didn't have the same perspective, vantage point, angle that you might have had. And that's what makes these situations so tough to litigate, and why the officer's word matters, the officer in question's word matters so much. Because if you look at that video, I mean, how else do you explain, Nathan, that 10 people can look at that same video and come away with a whole bunch of different interpretations of what they saw and what they did? Perspective and the lens through which you view it matters. And you don't think that same stuff is at play in the heat of a situation like that? I just don't think you're being realistic.
I think that that's lawyer gobbledygook.
No,
Don't accuse him of being a lawyer. That is an absolute insult.
I'll take that as a compliment as somebody who doesn't have a law degree.
It's not a compliment. Because let me tell you why it's not a compliment. Because if you and I are in a room together, and let's say there's a bookshelf in that room, and I observe you, and you walk over and you take a book off the shelf, and I observe you doing it, then you just did it. So in this situation, you got two officers. That is such a bad, and not for somebody who's always on the apples and oranges. That is such a bad. I know that I'm wrong.
There. That is so unlike this situation. It's ridiculous.
It's exactly like the scenario that you just brought up. Yes, it is.
It is not even
because in this situation, I know I'm wrong. But in this situation, if you got two officers, and one officer actually pulled the trigger and said, well, I saw him, the suspect, point their gun at me. And if the other officer testifies that I'm looking at the situation, from a different vantage point, but I see things clear as day, and the suspect did not point their gun at him, that tells me that somebody's lying.
Well, first of all, I would just say this. And I'm going to play devil's advocate on your side here. First of all, knowing what we know about the blue wall, do you really think that you're going to have a police officer that's going to offer up testimony that's going to be counter to what the officer said, just playing into your narrative about the nefariety of the police? Do you really think that his partner or somebody else on the scene is going to say that he didn't see the gun pointed at him? If that's what the shooter is saying? I'm just playing into your mentality about the police getting stuff off. Do you really think that one of his partners is going to tell a narrative counter to what he did?
That's my point. One of them should stand up and say what that officer did was bad police and he shouldn't have shot that kid. One of them should stand up and say that instead of them getting in line and saying it's a justified shooting. One of them should say,
when does that ever happen, Tarris?
And I'm saying what it should. They should. Then they should write
the only case in the history.
Then they should write legislation for this kid, and then we should completely disqualify qualified immunity. This should be a case right here where we should get rid of qualified immunity completely, where police officers can't. This could be a case study. Let's look into if this dude plays Call of Duty or not. Is he playing cops and robbers? As a black dad, this one hits pretty close, man. So
what did the cop do wrong? What are you saying he did wrong?
Just because from my vantage point of seeing things that I was watching last night, and I could be wrong, and I'm just saying,
what did you do wrong?
If the police officer, if the guy got out, he was running, he dropped the gun, you seen the gun go on the ground, and he picked it up and he took off running this way, and it wasn't pointed at him. If it wasn't pointed at him,
they found it on the ground after. They didn't see him drop it on the ground. They saw the gun.
Okay, that's subjectively. But so when the evidence comes out in the body cam forensic, when the evidence comes out,
and the boards that review this, they don't need it doesn't matter what either of those cops say. It's on camera, and both the police review people in the police department, internal review, as well as whatever they call them, the citizens committee, whatever, they are going to diagnose that video and with a fine-tooth comb.
If it's considered a unjustified shooting,
cops are hiding something.
If it's an unjustified shooting where they could have said, they can say, assess it and say he could have, that 3-second window that they're trained to shoot in, he could have waited an extra 3 seconds because it's a 3-second reaction thing that they're trained in, correct? Am I right? Am I right or wrong? And so if that it's 6 seconds, so he could
I still haven't heard you
extra
say
3
what
seconds.
they did wrong, Tarris. What did they do wrong?
Could have used from a black. I said I'm going to speak from a black.
No, I don't want it from a black point of view. I want it right or wrong based on the rules that police operate under. What did they do wrong? Not how you feel about it.
From a father's perspective, a black father's perspective, he could have had a little bit more restraints. If you're talking about 6 seconds, whenever the shooter thing, whenever they're trained, it's 3 seconds. So that's what I would be looking at as a black father. But not many people, say that's what I would be looking at. I would be looking at those 3 seconds. I'd be looking at his activities outside of his police officer and work. Does he play Call of Duty? Is this cops and robbers to him? That, from a black father's perspective, then my son could be my son. That's how I would look at it. And I'm not saying he was right in any perspective, because I'm an ownership guy. That the YN guy, you play dumb games, you get gun prizes. You playing around with cops with a gun, they're going to shoot you. But what point do police officers take accountability to say, hey, we could have took more restraint, and the police officers
but are you saying they're going to be held accountable? Those cops,
let's see.
Everything they did is going to be scrutinized with a scalpel.
Let's see.
But I still,
you know what, Phil,
Tarris, I still really haven't heard anything from you. And I bring up what Kevin pointed about 6 seconds, Monday morning policing. I mean, it's easy to sit back. Oh, they should have waited another 2 seconds. Well, first of all, he might have fired that gun. It looked to me when I saw the video that he lifted the gun up. But in either case, I mean, you're Monday morning quarterbacking when these guys, all they know is they're chasing a guy. He's got a gun. I mean, that's it.
That's all. Okay, he's chasing a black guy with a gun. He's chasing a black guy with a gun. That's all you know. We're black suspect, stolen car with a gun. What's this? What's up? Because I told you from the beginning of my talking in there. I'm coming from a black father's perspective with this lens. I can't help it. It's hitting too close to home to me. Too soon. Once the evidence comes out, then this is our responsibility to Monday morning quarterback. I'll say that again, like what Vernon said. We're the talking heads. People watch us to hear our perspective, whether they like it or not. Nobody's right and nobody's wrong. So that's what I'm saying. My perspective is coming from a lens of a black father who's thinking that could be my son. That could be my son. So I'm looking at this. So I'm going to be looking at it the lens of, what is this cop? Because this cop could have waited a few more seconds before he took my son's life. And that's in Hinton. I don't see him being wrong.
You know what? Let me jump in. Real quick. The Inquirer is reporting that it appears that, his lawyers are going to go with the, I guess, temporary insanity kind of defense. Sorry, that's the wrong screen. That's what it looks like right now, which, a lot of people were talking about it. I can see it. I can see it from an emotional standpoint. There's going to be some people are going to look at this man and they're going to judge him as if he's just bloodthirsty. And although what he did is in particular heinous, and if found guilty, he needs to deal with every single day of the rest of his life, in my opinion, for what he did with that sheriff deputy. But I do have a sympathy for him. I'm not sure if you're allowed to say that. I have sympathy for him as a father because he had just lost his son under, again, circumstances that just didn't have to go down like that. And, just judging from what a lot of you guys were saying, I know what Cincinnati's going to do, the same old thing. And we're never going to make any progress in these kind of scenarios.
Well, here, Nathan, I mean,
we are where we are.
Because the one thing. Here's the part that has to be. Here's the part that has to be owned if we're going to make progress. Everything that you just said, I kind of agree with. I have sympathy for the father. I have sadness for him. I absolutely believe that he had some type of emotional, mental break that sent him out to do what he did. And I think that from his defense, he probably will be able to make that case. It's not going to save him from jail, but it will probably save him from the gas chamber or something, something along those lines. So it's not going to save him from taking accountability for what happened, but it probably will save his life. But here's the thing. I agree with what you said. Like, we should look at these situations regardless and say, what can Cincinnati police learn from it to do better? What can we learn from it as a community? But I think on the opposite side of that, there also has to be the part of what is incumbent upon, what responsibility do we have to take as a community and as individuals. And so if the messages are going to be strong on what police need to do, I think there needs to be equally strong messaging on the other side as it pertains to these situations with the situations with guns and with the flood of guns that we have in our community. That is a huge problem. We cannot sit back and say, oh, we just want to talk about what police need to do, but at the same time, not talk about what we need to do. I hear what you're saying, Tarris, and I hesitated to even say this because of how some people are going to take it and how it might sound, but I'm going to say it. But you say a lot about taking this thing as a black father. But I think I understand what kind of black father you are, and I think I understand what kind of black father that Nathan, that you are. And I think the messaging that you all give to your sons and to your kids, and that's not to say that kids are going to be even perfect, even outside of the messaging, but there's certain messaging that you give to your kids that in all likelihood are going to keep them out of situations like this young man found himself in. And so it's an uncomfortable thing to say. People don't want to talk about it. They'll get mad. They'll say this, that, and the other. But again, I'm big on personal accountability and responsibility. And I think far too often in these situations, we want to hold everybody else accountable, except for the individuals who put themselves in situations. And I just think that I think that's wrong. I think it undermines the overall situations and arguments that we want to make. Because like I said, I get,
Kevin, that never happens in the black community.
What are you talking about? That never happens. What never happened?
We never want to put the onus on the individual. We always put the onus on
Nathan,
the
what I mean by that, what I mean by that is there's too much, yeah, this person did this, but whereas the question is, if this person hadn't did this, there would be no but. There would be no need for the but. In other words, right. I'll say like this, like a case. One of the people in the chat keeps bringing up the John Crawford case, and the John Crawford case is a perfect example of a black man who wound up in a situation losing his life for no reason. The John Crawfords of the world, those are the cases that we need to stand 10 toes down on, that we need to argue and say, hey, there's something messed up with the system, and that there's no way that this man should have wound up losing his life. It's the John Crawford situations that make black people react in situations like this the way that we do. So I understand it. I get it. But no, I'm not missing the point. You're missing my point. Is that in general, I just see too often, too many times when the argument is in defense of indefensible things and trying to lay the blame everywhere else except for on the people who are responsible. And I just think that undermines the battle.
But what I'm saying is, when it comes to black people, because there's black perpetrators involved with this, our society always holds black people accountable for the things that they do. And in some cases, some things they maybe didn't even do. So all that accountability talk, we do that too much. That's not necessarily what this is about per se, because we all know that. Again, nobody is arguing against the fact that these young men started this ball down the hill. We all agree with that. What I am saying is that Cincinnati police could have handled that situation better by not pursuing them. They jumped out the whip, you got the car, let them run away. They were terrified kids. Who knows what might have happened, but this situation, it never would have gone to the next level, right? And John Crawford's a great example. He's a great example that you don't have to be doing anything and you can still end up shot by the police. It don't matter whether you jumped out of a vehicle like these young kids did that you just stole. They ended up the same way as John Crawford, who was simply shopping at Walmart, right? And because of that, and understanding how black people, like understanding how police interact with black people, that's why I'm saying we need less interactions in these kind of moments. Get the vehicle, reclaim the vehicle, get it back to the owner, and don't be chasing young people or anybody else for no vehicle. late at night. Only bad things are gonna happen.
I just kind of feel. I
Only
guess I
bad
kind
things
of
are gonna
feel like
happen.
this. I don't disagree with your point that black people are policed differently. I don't disagree with that point. But here's the thing that I'm saying is that when you are engaged in criminal behavior,
And sometimes when you're
particularly
not.
when you are black. No, but we're talking about this situation. They were engaged in
No, but we're not.
criminal activity. Okay,
They
so
were, but you
so,
don't
so
have to be to
I'm
be
with
black in
you on the
America.
point of sometimes where you're not. I brought up the job, but we're talking about this situation. I'm talking about specifically with criminality. If you are a black person and you are engaged in criminality, it's not gonna wind up good for you, bro. I mean, that's just, I don't know any other way to say it. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. Yes, we all talk about the talk in our community, and it isn't right and it isn't fair. But God dog it, it's the talk that you gotta have, and you gotta know that if you are black and you are engaged in criminal activity, it
Kevin,
ain't gonna end
everybody
good
knows that.
for you, bro. That's just
Kevin, all black people know that.
well,
We already know
okay,
that.
Well,
The
obviously, this young
conversation,
man
the
did know it.
conversation,
right.
he did know it. He did know it. He was just thought he was trying to get away after doing some dumb stuff that he never should have done. Nobody disagrees with that. But one of the questions we should also be having is, do we want police officers chasing people down the street for vehicles? Because in this case, the officer fired 5 shots. He hit the young man twice. What if they were in a more crowded scenario? What if some
Well,
innocent
they may
bystander had
not have
taken one
fired it
little
if they were out in a
glove?
city street. They probably wouldn't have fired it if there were other bystanders around.
I understand your point. I'm not saying you don't have a point with that. But what if? It's just
Well,
not worth it.
there are
Because
there are
this young man's
regulations
life,
the police operate under, and that covers issues about bystanders.
right.
So it's
Right. I'm just saying this should be another You're right. They got rules. As a citizen, I'm just giving my opinion about policy, just one look, and that should be the policy. If somebody the report is it's a stolen vehicle, no high speed chases for dumb stuff that don't matter, like vehicles, and no foot
I totally
chases.
disagree.
Let
We've
them
been
go
over
get
this.
them
I
later.
totally disagree on the foot chases, because then where does it end? Let's say somebody robs your house, and you give a description, and the cops come in, and the cops see this guy who just robbed your house running through the woods. You're saying, no chase, let him go. Is that what you're saying?
Or feel he could get away, and he'd be like, oh, I don't want this part of this life, and go on and be like, man, I don't want no parts of this life, and I don't want to do with anything like this no more. I'm gonna expect with my friend. I'm gonna fix things with my family. It could have been a way where he changed his life completely.
Which case, take my hypothetical. So, Nathan,
Y'all
somebody's
going
robbed your house.
whole
You
lot
get
with the
home,
what
maybe you
ifs.
catch
I'm
them and
just
they
saying.
run. The cops come. The cops come and catch this guy who just robbed your house, broke into your house. You're saying that you
Okay.
tell the cops, don't chase him. Don't chase him.
I'm gonna answer your question, but there's one little element that's missing to what actually happened that I want to add to your hypothetical, which is, let's say somebody stole something from my house. They stole my Xbox.
Well, they
right?
broke
And they're
in
running
first
with
to
my
get it.
Xbox. They broke in first, and they're running away with my Xbox, and then they drop the Xbox and they keep on running. I'm gonna go get the Xbox and pick it up and get it ready so I can try to get my
No,
insurance
we're
back on.
assuming
I'm
the
not gonna
cops
pursue them
came
at
and
all.
saw the guy running with it.
If the cops come and he drops my Xbox and I recover my Xbox and the police officer does not want to pursue them, I'm not
guess what?
tripping
Consider
about
Kevin's
it.
previous example. Once
I'm not tripping
once
about
word gets out, and it'll be a public thing, we're not going to chase people. Guess what's going to happen? You're going to have people robbing houses, doing stuff right and left, because they know that they can run and they're not going to be chased.
And here's
If I have my pistol on me and I hear that somebody is about to is still in my car, and I've got my weapon on me on my porch, I'm gonna watch them drive away.
I'm not asking
gonna
about
fire
that.
into
That's
that
not the
vehicle because it's
scenario.
not that serious. I'm not gonna run down the street
You're going
chasing
to
them,
call the
shooting them.
cops, though, aren't
I'm
you?
simply gonna GPS it.
So the cops
call
can
the
shoot him,
boys.
Phil?
Call the
here's what's disingenuous, I think, about what part of this conversation. Okay, I understand what Nathan is saying. Like, look, certain things should not rise to the level of the use of lethal force. Okay, stolen cars, property, things of that nature. I agree with that 100%. You should not die behind the fact that you stole a car. However, I will say, and this is what that is not the reason why this young man died. I continue to point in that it wasn't the stolen car that got him killed. It was him running with a gun that got him killed.
It was the pursuit. And
so wait a minute. So wait a minute. So here's the other thing is that if somebody breaks into your home and they steal your property, are you just going to let them go, or are you going to call the police? Okay, wait a minute. Now stop there. Why are you calling the police?
To get a report?
Because that's the to make a report so I can get it, so I can get my insurance.
Yeah, that ain't just it. That is not just and again, I think
give him a couple gouges.
This is the problem that I have with y'all. Y'all are not being intellectually honest with the audience or with with yourself. Okay. You call the police because you want the police to get that person that broke in your house and stole your stuff and if possible get your stuff back. That's why you call the police. Nobody calls the police just so that they can get a report for their insurance. That is a
you didn't let me finish my answer though.
I was in mid-secondary, and anybody in the chat or the audience that's listening to this, they're insulting your intelligence right now. They're asking you to believe that's the reason why they call the police. You know it, and I know.
The only insult is that you interrupted me while I was still trying to make my point. That's the only insult. So, as I was saying is, and then I can only speak for myself. So, and it's already happened. So, if I come through the house, somebody here, if I got something in the house, the first thing I'm going to do is go to my weapon to make sure that my weapon is secure, right? That's what we all going to do. Once I got that on me, I'm going to go through the house to make sure everything is clear, right? And then I'm going to call the boys for the exact reasons I said. So I can write a police report, start the insurance process, and before you cut me off, and I hope they catch up with them. I'm not saying I don't want the police to catch up.
How can they catch up with all that chasing them? You want it both ways.
Hey, I'm going to give you, if I can, because, and again, I don't know, you're conservative, you might believe this, but some might say that passes prologue. So if you break into people's houses today, chances are you might be breaking into somebody else's tomorrow.
So you raised an excellent point there, Nathan. So because the police didn't pursue them and catch them when they broke into your house, somebody else's house got broken into. So you're cool with that. You cool with the police letting people. This is my argument. This is my point behind why letting criminals go.
I'm cool with the police not killing somebody.
No, I'm not saying. I'm not Nathan. I agree with you on the use. I agree with you on the use of lethal. I agree with you on the use of lethal force, Nathan. But what you're suggesting by letting the criminals go is you are setting up somebody else to be victimized.
Right. That's one.
No, it is definitely a good way of looking at it.
Oh, yeah. That's one way.
So are you okay with that? So you're okay with the police letting somebody go. So let's just say if you were the second person that got your house broken into, let's just say somebody broke into your house, stole some stuff, scared the hell out of your family, and you found out that the police had an opportunity to apprehend them, but they let them go, and now somebody broke in your house and scared your family. You can't sit there and tell me you would not be livid with the fact that the police let them.
Do you want to hear my answer? Do you want to hear my answer to that? Okay. So my answer is that if that were my property that was stolen, no matter how valuable it is, if the police got to a position similar to what we're talking about, where they're going to get into a foot chase over some property, I would prefer they did not. It's just property. It's not that serious. It don't really mean that much. I'll be inconvenienced. I might be pissed, but I don't want the police to kill somebody to recover some property or my car. It ain't that serious. And that's what's wrong with our society, is that we value these things more than people, more than our neighbors. Yeah, I'm just telling you the truth. I know you don't want to hear it.
I don't agree with it.
Here's the problem with your logic, Nathan.
Take it. You're gonna feel better. You're gonna feel better. Once you take this medicine, Phil and Kevin, and you're gonna feel better, just like Trump said about America with these tariffs.
Here's the problem with that. Here's the problem with what your argument is, Nathan.
And now that really cuts.
I'm not arguing.
Here's what I'm going to say. You're moving to the point. You're moving to the point that every foot pursuit results in somebody getting killed. That's the first
No, Kevin.
bad. Wait, let me finish.
No, Kevin, that's
Finish
not
what
what
I'm
I'm
gonna
moving
say.
for.
Let me finish what I'm gonna say. No,
That's
because
not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying.
you're saying the police should just let them go. They shouldn't pursue. And I'm with you, bro. I'm with you 100%.
No,
That a foot pursuit
you're
should
already
not
wrong.
end in a death sentence, right? But I'm here to tell you that every foot pursuit does not end in a death sentence, and every reason why the cops are pursuing somebody on foot does not end that way.
Kevin, that's
It's not
irrelevant.
irrelevant.
That's irrelevant. That's irrelevant. What's relevant is the fact that a foot pursuit is more likely to cause bad things happening than
I
if there's no
disagree
foot
because
pursuit
you're
at
giving
all.
criminals
That's
a red
way more
light.
relevant.
You're a green light.
Nobody's giving
A
criminals
green
a
light.
red
You're giving them
light.
a green light
Nobody's
because
giving criminals a red light.
nobody's
Criminals are
going
going
to
to break
chase
the
them.
law if they want to break the law. No, what you're doing is you're saying that we care about our community, residual damage, and other people's
You never want to
lives
admit
over
what you're
property.
saying.
Caring
And I
You
about
know
never
our
this
want
is
to admit what
community
you're
is
shocking.
getting
saying.
criminals
Listen,
off the street.
I know
Caring about
for
the
the
community is
pro
arresting somebody who
capitalist,
broke into your house so they don't break into
for the
mine.
pro
That's
capitalist,
caring
Kevin
about
is a
the
pro
community.
capitalist. Phil is a pro capitalist. For the pro capitalist, I
Has
know it's
nothing to do with
hard for you
capitalism. It
to
has to do with
understand that.
justice.
It's got everything to do with capitalism because we've all been seduced by it to
Somebody breaks
believe
in your
that our
house,
trinkets
somebody
and our
breaks in your house
cars
and makes
and our
off with
stereos and
somebody.
our gold chains are more
If
important
somebody
than
breaks in your
people's
house,
lives. And I
Nathan, they
know it's
make
really
off
hard
with
to
your
break that
you
matrix.
have that $5,000
I know.
TV. You told me, didn't you have that? But anyway, I
Now
made it
you're
up.
trying to have people come to my house. I do
But the
not have a
point is, I
$5,000
don't
TV over
think you're
here.
going to say when the police come, if they come and the guy's going through the woods, I don't think you're going to say, "Hey, look, it's just a couple $1,000 TV. Don't chase the guy." I don't think you're going to say that.
That's exactly what I'm going to say. Well, I don't know
That's what I
why
would
this is
say
so hard
too.
for you to understand. Everybody is not caught up on trinkets like that. I can't take none of this stuff with me. None of it. So I don't know why that's so hard. I'm telling you, I don't care if it was a big bag of money. I'll catch you later. I'll
What do
catch
you
you
mean?
later.
What do you mean you'll catch?
And that's how
You'll
I'm
catch
looking
you
at it.
later.
There,
Who'll
for
catch
me,
you?
there's a time. For me, there's a time for lethal force, and that's when you think that your life is in danger. As I'm sure this officer is
It's not
arguing,
arguing.
right?
It's on camera.
And I'm just saying that those.
Yeah, it
Well,
is.
it's not on camera because on camera I don't see that person point a gun at him. I don't see that.
It
I
looked
looked
to
at
me
it. I
like
didn't
it
see
was,
that.
but
It
it
was like a
doesn't
big
matter
blurry.
because he dropped the gun was on the ground when the guy got shot, so that settles it. There was a gun.
There was a gun, but was it pointed?
It's not about whether he had a gun. It's about whether the gun was pointed at him or not. The officer claimed that it was. In the video, I can't tell the
Well,
difference.
here's what I'll say. The family has they got a very good law firm. They got some very good attorneys working for them. Brother Fanon and those brothers over there at the Cochran firm. Rest assured that if there's anything that the police did improper or didn't follow procedures, they're going to turn over every rock. They're going to turn over every stone to find it. So we'll find out. I mean, I think that's one of the things with these types of cases. Is as strong as we're arguing for things right now, the reality is all of the information and the evidence is not in. The investigations are not complete. And so I think that, that changes the framework of opinions on a lot of different things, depending on what comes out. So I think, everything has to be couched under the caveat of what we know now, and what we might find out later on, could change how we all could see and interpret, these situations. But so I think we all have to leave room for, as strongly as we might be arguing for positions here, that as more information comes, investigations get wrapped up, things go to court, that we might have to back up off of some of what we said here today based on what the facts are.
Can I ask something about the father? Because he left from watching the video. We see grainy stuff. He got to sit in a room with the people and watch the video and then left. He might have seen what if he seen something that we didn't see? I'm for sure he saw something that we didn't see. If we're not seeing, because when they go in those rooms and they show those videos to those people, you have an opportunity, like the family that got to see that, and then he's gone. That gives him, I mean, that disassociation time could lead to that should be a focus as well, because we're sitting here arguing whether the gun is pointed or not, what speculating, that kind of stuff. When this man gets to watch this from a black father seeing his son get gunned down, if the gun had fell out before he took off running behind that dumpster, from what if the gun was going to ground, and then he took off out the dumpster, and then he got shot when he took out behind the dumpster, and the gun wasn't pointed at him, and his dad seen that, and then it sent him into a hyper-vigilant state. I mean, I'm not justifying anything he says, but I think like these are things that I would like to know your guys' opinion on that part of it.
Well, I definitely think I don't necessarily know that it's per se that he saw something that others didn't see from watching the video. I think, and he would have to answer that question. I mean, nobody can answer that but him, but I don't think it takes much to sort of recognize that if you watch your son get shot once, twice, 3 or 4 times in a row, like that's what you're seeing. Whether you're seeing it in slow-mo or seeing every detail of it, you're seeing your son get shot. You're hearing, the police officers, using some colorful language in that, which I'm sure also exacerbated things. I mean, I think that's probably another thing that, probably needs to be addressed. I mean, within the police department, like how some of these officers, speak and talk when they're in the field. Because
you guys want to hear the definition of temporary insanity? Is anybody interested in that?
Yeah, sure.
Well, temporary insanity basically claims that the defendant was unable to understand the nature or wrongfulness of their actions due to a temporary mental impairment at the time of the crime. And I should point out, as it indicates here, that the defense is difficult to prove and rarely successful in court. So just so you guys know what it is.
So is that the same as
Okay.
Sort of like crime of passion, that temporary mental insanity? Would that be considered kind of like the same as a crime of passion? You walk in on your wife with another man and you just start spraying bullets. Is that the same thing as temporary insanity, what you just read, or something?
Well, the person who shot in that situation would probably want to assert that. However, it's a very, very high standard. To me, it isn't just, they were in an incredibly emotional state. Now that might knock it down to a manslaughter or something like that, but it's got to be more than that, I think, for temporary insanity. I mean, the person just has to be basically out of their mind, not able to comprehend their actions, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the stakes are too high, man. But I saw a video of what appeared to be like the brother of the father, I believe, and he was saying he wanted to go into the courtroom. I thought in that video, the Hemlich County Sheriff deputies, I really liked the energy I saw in that moment. Now I wasn't there; there might be other parts of it, but just the part I saw, I thought it was giving the right energy. It wasn't all like we the police. It seemed like they was having some real compassion and empathy. And I know it's a lot of people hurt right now and in their feelings, and justifiably so. And I just hope we do right by this whole situation, by everybody involved. I hope we just do right by us in whatever way that ends up folding out, because we don't always get it right in these kind of situations. But appreciate your conversation on that. And again, I still, people are saying themselves, I watched the video and they say, Police Chief Thigi, she was sort of narrating, which, it's kind of like, the home team has some control, right? Because here they are about to conduct an investigation into what their officers did. And the first point of contact is the the chief of police, right? And, one could probably, they're naturally going to want to try to make things out to be as good as they could possibly be for their officers. Some people can make that argument. But she's sort of narrating it. And at some point, Phil, I'm saying all this for a point for you, is you missed it when you walked away, because it's what sparked the conversation when you came back and Tarris was talking about it. At some point, there was a reporter that asked some really, really strong questions. The first couple of questions, if you go back and watch it, it's on Cincinnati.com. And one of the questions he asked was, well, there were 2 officers there at the scene. One officer says that the suspect pointed a gun at him, and that's for the reason why he opened fire. What did the other officer say? And that's when the police chief shut it down. She said she didn't want to go there. which
Well,
I get it, but I thought that
I
was
understand,
interesting.
but you
That's
know,
what started
there's
that whole conversation.
the complaint in these kind of shootings in the past has always been you're hiding something. Okay, you're not disclosing. You're not getting the camera, the footage. You're not telling the story. Okay, well, I think in this case they did a pretty good job by releasing that
If,
video and that
if
kind of
there's
thing.
no gun,
Excuse me one sec.
sorry.
Excuse me. The but to question her description of the events, I think that's a little bit unfair. It will all come out whether her description was right or wrong. It's all going to come out. It's going to be examined like by the defense, his attorney. It's going to be examined by the citizens, whatever they call it, review board. Everybody's going to examine it. So whatever did happen that we can't pick up exactly, we'll find out.
Yeah.
If it comes to find out that he did not have a gun pointed at him, will the officers step up and say, "Hey, this one was wrong"? Can they take accountability, just like we're taking accountability and say, "Hey, this young man he stole a car. He shouldn't have been doing what and led to his death." Can the police officers take accountability for once and say, "This officer was out of line. He is not what we hold these blue stripes with. He's not one of us"? Or will they coddle him once again and drive a wedge in between how black fathers father our children? And that's my question.
There's a lot of black fathers who feel like, they feel like, we got a problem with these
Yeah,
kids
for
out
sure.
here with the gun. So, it's a lot of black fathers who are going to put, and again, I don't think anybody cannot look at this situation and tell me that the individuals who stole this car are the ones that started this whole train wreck of a tragedy in a situation. So I don't think anybody's arguing against that.
Look, the larger question is, did somebody deserve to die in this situation, right? Like that's the conversation that we're having here is, did that young man deserve to die as a result of the decisions that he made and his choice
Absolutely
to
not.
run? And like I said, I have great faith and trust and belief in Brother Fanon and his firm and what they're going to do. And like I said, if there's any doubt, if there's any question about the validity of the shoot, they will turn over every rock and uncover everything to try to unveil that and get justice for that family and that young man. I believe in that. I trust in that because I know Fanon and I know the work that he'll put in on that. So I'm gonna lean back and trust into that process and wait to see, wait to see how that plays out. I think if you haven't looked at the frame by frame kind of breakdown of the video that's on Cincinnati.com, I would also encourage people to kind of go do that. Look, the video in and of itself is not super high quality. They're running around. It's kind of blurry. It's sort of tough to see. So it really is hard for anybody to look at that video and to say one way or the other that there's anything that you could see 100% conclusively, just because the quality of the video wasn't super great and super clear. And so I think we all have to be kind of careful about making declarative statements about things that are really kind of up in the air and are questionable. And to Nathan's point, we just got to hope that the system works, things are done right by the system. In my experience, when the video ain't in the favor of the police, they slow to let it go. When they feel like the video backs them up, they're more than happy to share that. They're more than happy to share that video and as much as you want, but they're a little bit slower on pulling the trigger when they feel like they know that they're going to have to deal with. Now, Cincinnati, to their credit, since the collaborative and of late have tried to be much more quick about letting that type of stuff out. But I just know that in the past and sort of historically, if they feel like it's in their favor, they'll put it out quick. If there's questions for it, they may drag their feet a little bit. And we also don't know much of anything because they're not releasing any of the information about the officer who was involved in the shooting. So we don't know his record. We don't know a lot of things about him as well. And then that might also add some elements to the conversation and some information that helps us look at this differently. So there's still a lot of information out there that we don't know.
I just think it was interesting that Police Chief Fiji didn't answer that question, and I think it says something. But let's move on. So, are you guys aware of this story? Her name is Shiloh Hendricks, white female in Minnesota. She has gone mega viral, and now she's got mega bucks in her bank account. A video was uploaded to social media this past week of her using the N word. Apparently, she was at a playground, as you can see, with her son, and she says that another black kid who turns out to be autistic had stolen something from her son. Kids do that. They're at the playground, they see one person's purse, they want to take purses. That's how I looked at it. But apparently, she started referring to this young black autistic kid as the N word. Somebody caught it on video, put her out there, and she started taking some heat online. So what did she do? Well, she started basically a GoFundMe. I didn't know this until this case. Maybe I've forgotten it, but there's like a GoFundMe for the conservative movement, for Second Amendment people. Think people like Kyle Rittenhouse. He raised hundreds of thousands of dollars on this particular medium, same as this woman is using right now. And so you got two stories. On one side, it's like a Karen story, right? But on the other side, this woman has raised almost $700,000. When she first posted her air quotes GoFundMe, she was looking for $50,000. I think she was looking to like relocate. She was taking some heat, needed some whatever, and she now is close to $3/4 of $1 million. As a matter of fact, I read that she actually updated her donation goal. It started at 50 grand. Now it's at 1 million. And so people are like,
What does
wow,
she say she's using the money for? Do we know
she's
that?
using it to relocate. She says her family's in jeopardy. She's been taking some heat from the woke mafia, blah, 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 that kind of stuff. And, people are like, wow, what does this say about America that this woman can raise this kind of money for being openly racist
Nathan, it
or
doesn't
bigoted?
say anything more than what it's always been said about America. Racism has always been a $1 billion industry. Whether you talk about slavery and oppression and all of the money that was made on the backs of slaves and racism and all of that, going all the way to this woman raising $1 million in donations or close to $1 million based off of a racist incident. It is unfortunately the foundations upon which our nation has been built. That race and racism has always been funded, uh, able to generate money for those who traffic in it. They talk about Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson being race hustlers. This is the real race hustle right here. Just think about it, that a woman who casts a racial slur at an autistic child and then can cry about how she's the victim behind it and raise $1 million, man, that tells you everything that you need to know about how and I'm not going to assign any percentages to it, but an uncomfortable percentage of the country still views race in America. But it's not a surprise to me. And I'll say a fool and their money is soon parted, because anybody who would give their hard-earned money to this woman, I think is in fact a fool. But hey, people can spend their money however they want to spend their money. I wouldn't give her a dime.
Yeah, I think all of that is true. But I think what also is true is that we are headed to some dark days. Internet has allowed a lot of very dangerous types of mentalities and ideologies to sort of rise up. And then you also add to that, the elevation of Donald Trump and the way that he likes to use race to divide us. I mean, we have some cracks between us that I don't think we can just talk out. I just don't think we can talk out what I see. This particular, it's not called GoFundMe, but it was a GoFundMe type of website. They had to cut off the comments because people were donating money and leaving racist comments, all kind of racist comments, and really feeling free to express that, right?
I want to
Using
say something about
anonymity
the whole free
of social
speech
media
thing.
on some levels. Yeah. I mean, but I'm just saying. You're right, Kevin. This has always been here, but it's rising up.
Well, I think
It's rising up, and allowing the January Sixers to go free.
you
It's
you
just
made a
cooking it.
you made a
And
great
they're
observation, Nathan, in that I hate to use the word rising because it makes it seem like that there is something there that wasn't there before. The difference is, and you hit on it, the internet, the advent of social media, the ability for people who traffic in these sorts of ideas to get widespread dissemination of those ideas. Back in the day, there used to be gatekeepers. I even when I started out in the media, people who used to espouse this type of stuff would never get quoted in the newspaper, or you would see them on television saying some of the outrageous stuff. I can remember, people who would show up at community meetings that would say crazy stuff. You would kind of laugh about it. You would never think of giving ink to stuff that you just knew was flat out crazy in those days. Well, the mainstream media is no longer the gatekeeper with social media and with the internet now, what messages get out. If you got a platform, you can put out whatever you want. And so now you've got millions of people who had no outlet that would take them seriously or listening to them, bypassing that now and are finding ways through the internet and these different things to be able to get it out there. And so that's why I say it's always been there. It's always been a fabric of the country, but you've been able to, because you had certain gatekeepers who put the message out, a lot of that stuff got suppressed and didn't see the light of day. So most Americans were oblivious to these ideas. Those of us who, who worked in media, we knew it was out there, right? Because they were still trying to get the message through, but it was just like, yeah, that's not sane talk for the public consumption, right? But the internet has blown up those walls now.
What getting on this whole thing about the influence of the internet, at least prior to this administration, those people were the conspiracy people were still looked at as kind of wingnuts. You know what I mean? I don't care how many followers they had. Think about this. I think you guys know this. I think it was a couple weeks ago. There's a conspiracy theorist named Laura Lunar with millions of followers, okay, who flies around with Trump sometimes on his campaign plane. Well, this woman, who, by the way, believes 9/11 was an inside job. Okay, so that kind of tells you where she's at. She went into Trump's office at the White House about 2 weeks ago and gave him names of 5 top national security officials that, in her words, were disloyal, and he fired them on the spot. So what's really scary is not just the wing nuts that are on the internet, but we now have a president that's actually listening and doing what they say. And I think another thing to mention is we hear this free speech argument a lot. Like, if you remember when some of people, unfortunately, in my party, they drag Zuckerberg and these other people and accuse them, they're on their sites of being anti-conservative or liberal. Well, the fact is, as I've said before, these are private companies. They have every right to say what they want, but these guys didn't have the guts to say that to Congress. And if you go back to those times, most like what it was, Twitter and Facebook, and they chose to monitor what went on their sites. And if it was a crazy conspiracy theory or Nazi stuff or Klan stuff or racist stuff, they wouldn't allow it. They wouldn't post it. Okay. But now, because of this pressure that they don't have the guts to stand up to, now they don't monitor anything. Okay, which just allows it, or if they are irresponsible, they choose to let misinformation just be spread all over the place. And the sad thing is, because they have abdicated that, that's why all this racist and conspiracy crap is flooding these sites.
Yeah, and the key to that is, look, and I think Janice makes a good point. She says it's always been her feeling that the First and Second Amendments left unbridled will be the downfall of America. Look, the First Amendment guarantees sort of freedom of speech, and I believe in that.
By government.
Yeah, right. I believe in that wholeheartedly. But I think those of us who traffic in information and in news have an obligation, right, to traffic only in those things that are truthful, that are verifiable, that are factual. It's called operating under a standard of ethics. And this is what I always try to convey to people about where they get their information from. There are some people who do not operate under a standard of ethics or a code of ethics by which they go about giving you the information that you consume. In other words, they don't play by any rules. They'll put falsities out there. They'll put fake stuff. They'll put doctored videos. They'll put flat out lies out there. They don't care. Whatever gets the views and the eyeballs and the watches on it for ad revenue or whatever, that is their only motivation. Like the mainstream media or don't like them. The reality is that we operate under a standard of ethics, a code.
You have to get fact checked, right?
Yeah,
that
we have to operate under and are subject to defamation, laws and things of that nature in this country if we don't follow them. That is incredibly important. And to Phil's point, right now, we are living in a society, unfortunately, where Facebook and some of these other social media platforms, they don't operate under that same code or standard of ethics about what they put on their platforms or disseminate or allow to be disseminated on their platforms. So they are not, in terms of what we would think about as news purveyors, they're not that, because most of the content that's on there, Facebook isn't generating that.
It's like a bulletin board with no ground rules.
Yeah,
By
exactly.
the way, did you see Trump talking about the Photoshop picture of Garcia with MS-13? He's being interviewed, and the reporter says, "Yeah, that was photoshopped. He didn't have those on." But Trump, who likes to tell us that what we see with our own eyes actually isn't there. He's actually continues to bring up, if you watch the interview, the fact that this guy had MS-13, even though it was photoshopped.
I have a couple problems. Like the mainstream media was manipulated by the Joe Biden and his administration as well. We can't take away that what Zuckerberg said that it happened during COVID, that he was
Zuckerberg is not
hold on. I'm talking about I'm talking about why we got here. The word face for mainstream media is not trusted, and why they had to open the floodgates, because Zuckerberg and the powers that be, that's why Elon Musk ended up buying Twitter, because they were suppressing information. Let's not forget that.
They have every right to do it.
They have every right to do that. So that's how we got the right here. That's how we got the right here. So I'm going to agree with you guys. I'm going to come back and I'm going to agree with you. With the racism and things like that, when Trump got elected, that's what happens on my side of the party. The white boys get they think that they're bad. That's my only beef with Donald Trump. And we were talking about Donald Trump last week, and I'm glad that you guys have come around to what I'm talking about. Paula White. Paula White is the spiritual czar of the White House, and she came up in black church. She came up in black church, all the way in black church, and now she's getting in a position of power to be in the White House, and you don't see nobody black around her. So when you start messing around in the spiritual realm of things, and you don't involve the tribe of Judah, in my opinion, that's whenever we start having problems with the Trump white supremacy train. When they start bringing in people like y'all start talking about Donald Trump, I'm tired of hearing about Donald Trump. I said that, I think, on the last podcast that we had. I brought up Paula White, and then y'all like, Paula White. Now you guys are talking about the influence that the ladies you just said who's the influencer who got him to fire all these people. Paula White has that same influence spiritually in the White House.
How do we get on?
I don't know how we wound up there.
Because it's the same thing. It's the same exact thing. You guys are talking about a lady who's an influencer who got on the plane with Donald Trump and had 5 people eliminated, their jobs eliminated because of her influence. And then you get somebody, and I'm saying it's the same thing. That's the type of white supremacy and racism that I look for within the Republican Party and in the Trump administration. Not y'all look at something different. I'm looking at it in that way. I'm looking at has someone who's in the spiritual realm at the White House, praying over the White House, praying over all things godly in our country, but there's no black representation in there at all. That's the white supremacy I'm looking at.
Tarris, that's the reason why the majority of black people didn't vote for Trump, because we knew he was going to do stuff like this. Paula White was in his White House the last time he was in office, right? He's incompetent, and he puts incompetent people in very important positions. That's why we voted against him. That's why you voted against him.
Here's the thing that I can't understand about Tarris and people like him who voted for Donald Trump. It's like, if you can see somebody who is that morally corrupt in one area, what makes you think that you can trust any of the rest of what that person does? It's like, oh, well, Donald Trump's economic policy is good, but he's a racist and he listens to racist people and all. Bruh, even if his economic policy is 100, if you believe he's racist, how do you think even his economic policies are going to work out in your favor? If truly he's listening to racist people who don't have your best interests at heart, I don't understand how you marry the two in terms of any of his policy proposals that are going to be beneficial for you as a black person, if you believe that he's surrounding himself with racists that he's listening to.
I can tell you, and this is the easiest answer of all, because the alternative that the Democratic Party put up wasn't good enough to beat him. Even if I didn't vote for Donald Trump, what you guys put up wasn't good enough to beat Donald Trump. So that's what I'm saying. Kamala Harris wasn't good enough to beat Donald Trump. You guys did not have anything that could beat him.
She wasn't good enough to beat him because of crackpot logic, kind of like what you just put out there.
Economics, immigration.
Would have been good enough to beat him.
Not racism. Y'all went for the racism thing. Y'all went racism.
If you hadn't been trying to justify all of the reasons why you didn't want to vote for her versus just saying, hey, she's probably a better person and will probably do more things that will benefit people who look.
And also, she's relatively sane.
That's than the other guy. But here's the larger point, and I don't want to lose this and getting off on this Tarris tangent and getting back to the dangers of what Zuckerberg and he brought up Biden. And look, first and foremost, I don't agree with Joe Biden and the administration putting a pressure on any media entity. I'm absolutely 100% against that, and he was wrong for doing that. However, what I will say, the essence behind what he was saying was absolutely 100% correct, is that Zuckerberg was not doing a good enough job of making sure that factually inaccurate information wasn't being disseminated across his platform, and felt like he had an obligation, as big as Facebook is, and as much as people rely on it for news and information, they ought to have standards that they adjust by. But Zuckerberg don't want those standards. He doesn't want regulations. He doesn't want to operate under those ethics because he wants all of that money, even if it comes with the hate speech and everything else. He wants all of that money. He doesn't want the responsibility that the rest of us have to abide by. And
he's scared of Trump. He's afraid Trump threatened to put him in jail.
He's scared of Trump, but he's scared of Trump because Trump can affect his money.
Previously, before Trump, he had to go to those congressional hearings. He had to go to congressional hearings previously before Trump because he had to listen to Dr. Fauci was saying. He had to defend Dr. Fauci's fallacies.
At the end of the day, it ain't fear about Trump. It's fear about losing that money. And that's what Zuckerberg is concerned about. He give a damn about Trump. He want that money.
Well, Trump is the means by which he'll lose the money.
Absolutely. So at the end of the day, he don't want that regulation that he has to stand up to that everybody else does. Because what Donald Trump is trying to do is what every other dictator around the world has done, is basically to eliminate free and independent press by casting aspersions on them and creating a situation where people don't trust them. And so just like people in North Korea believe Kim Jong-un is God, and you sitting there thinking like, well, how could people be that dumb? How could they actually think that this dude is like God? That's what happens when a dictator can cut off all of the free information that you receive, and all you get is what he wants you to get. Let that permeate for a few years. People can have you believe in all kinds of stuff, as we see Trump has been able to do with MAGA. MAGA folks believe all kinds of nonsense that a sane fact-based person absolutely looks at them and says, I can't believe you believe, but they don't consume anything but what Donald Trump gives them.
The majority of the
that is how it begins. And that's what he's trying to do here in the United States is make it so that the only person you listen to is him, that the only information you get comes from his approved sources. That's why he's trying to get rid of PBS, NPR, anybody basically who doesn't kiss his butt and say that the tattoo on the guy's knuckles is in fact what Donald Trump wants to tell you they are, even though all the evidence points to the contrary. He's sitting there arguing with NBC, telling them that they're a bad, or Meet the Press telling them that they're a bad, biased organization because they won't accept his false information. This is what this man is trying to do. And he's doing it. He's, to some degree, he's whittling away at it because people are, buying into that stuff. But
the majority of people in the United States of America get their information from social media. They don't get it from mainstream media. So whenever you're allowed to manipulate, like Joe Biden and his administration did whenever he got elected president, and Mark Zuckerberg had to go and sit in front of Congress and before Donald Trump got elected. So that's why I believe Zuckerberg was so quick to go kiss the ring, because he had already been through the Congress hearings from 2020 to 2023. And you said, how did Dr. Fauci get involved in this? Because when Dr. Fauci was telling everybody to mask up, and then people were pushing back on Facebook, the information, if you push back on Facebook, you would have got disinformation. And that is the truth. So that's why Dr. Fauci got involved in it. That's how his name got involved in it. So you're saying Joe Biden has the opportunity and the ability to censor social media, to let mainstream media have the wherewithal in the thing. But Donald Trump is saying everybody gets a chance to get a voice. But since he does, and it's been proven over and over again by submission, George Stephanopoulos and all these people who are submitting to Donald Trump, who are the mainstream media, if they all stood 10 toes down, it would be cool. But they all the mainstream media, either they're losing their viewership or they're kissing the ring. So if that's not the case, that's just bad media on mainstream media. Because like I said, we get more views than some of these CNN shows. And so we're more important than mainstream media, in my opinion. And so Donald Trump is and I don't know how to talk about what Donald Trump did. I'm saying, if Joe Biden is allowed to manipulate Facebook and social media, then Donald Trump, when he gets in power, he's going to do the same thing. And I don't see how that's delusional at all.
I give you an 8. I give you an 8 for your passion, Tarris, but I give you about a 1 when it comes to your logic and your facts.
Do you mean an F? What system of grading are you on?
Making any kind of sense whatsoever. What Biden did was the exact right thing. You're in the middle of a pandemic, and you got Zuckerberg allowing people to spread disinformation.
That's subjective.
They're looking at their algorithm, looking at the trims. It's not subjective.
The vaccine is subjective. Some people did not agree with the vaccine, and they were pushing that.
So you don't have to agree with it,
okay,
but the facts are the facts. So the Biden administration, and again, maybe there was more to it from what I remember him saying, is basically he got a bunch of phone calls where they were emphatically telling him that you got misinformation that could get people killed. Mm-hmm. And we are asking you to take this down. That's what the government should do during a pandemic. It is nothing like what you see Donald Trump doing, where he's saying, look, if you don't increase traffic from people that like me and the Republican Party, right? There's no pandemic. It's just, we just don't like the fact that you disagree with us. That is
here's the thing I don't want you guys to miss in this is, and I guess this is my larger point, is that Facebook is not a quote unquote news media company, right? That this is why I'm saying this is an important differentiation, because they're not obligated currently to play by the same rules that we're obligated to play by. What Joe Biden was trying to get them to do was to adopt and play by those rules and say, hey, you guys should, as responsible citizens, have a obligation to make sure that factually inaccurate information isn't out there. Look, we know there's all tons of crap on Facebook, TikTok, whatever social media. The internet does what the internet does, right? And one of the things that Zuckerberg fears most of all is some type of regulation that is going to force him to play by a set of rules and act responsibly. That's part of the reason why he why he supports Trump and why he kisses the ring, because Trump is for the free for all. He's for everything. But I think eventually what he fears is that Democrats or somebody is going to come along and they're going to regulate Facebook and social media for these very reasons, because the reality is that for as much good as these platforms do, they do a whole lot of damage by allowing just crazy crap to get out there that people who are not, I don't want to say smart enough, maybe sophisticated enough to differentiate between what's conspiracy crap and what's actual factual information. Like, a lot of people get caught up in that loop, and it's how they wind up believing that Hillary Clinton is eating babies underneath a pizza shop, and people get sucked into this type of stuff. And that's what happens when you allow this type of stuff to pervade on the internet unregulated. And so Zuckerberg doesn't want that for Facebook, right? And I think, not saying, and I don't even think really that the Democrats want that for Facebook either, which is why I think Biden and what he was doing and even putting pressure on him was trying to say to him, come on, bro, do the right thing so that we don't have to come in and try to put forth some tougher regulations on you. Be responsible, police yourself, right? Like, I think that was the appeal that they were trying to make. And it's an appeal that we should all want. Or at least if we don't want that, we got to develop the sophistication amongst ourselves to be able to sift the crap from what is actually useful stuff for us to use. And unfortunately, not enough people are able to do that.
Phil stepped away, but that's all I got, guys. We've been on for quite a bit. I'm gonna let you guys go. But any last thoughts before we roll?
When I
Right
heard
on.
that, by the
Phil
way,
has
I
impeccable
apologize for leaving for a few minutes, though I was listening on my headset.
No, I understand.
But anyway, let's see.
Got it.
Pardon
Any
me?
last thoughts, Phil?
Last thoughts?
Any last
Surprised
thoughts?
I don't have any. Surprisingly, I don't have any. Yeah.
All right, everybody.
Yeah.
Well,
Hey, Nathan, I
appreciate your
would
time.
just to reiterate and start on the same plane that I started out on. And I know we kind of got into that discussion hot and heavy. And I just again want to reiterate, sympathies go out to everybody involved and all the families. And look, we all want the same thing here. I think, regardless of how much we debate on how we get there or what's the best way to get there, I think at the end of the day, we don't want to see anybody lose their lives, black, white, or whatever. We don't want to see our communities living in fear, living in an injustice, whether that is from police brutality or whether that is from criminality. I think we all want to live in safety and peace. And I know that is the heart from which, no matter where you fall in this conversation, I believe that that's the heart of where everybody is coming from, is we just want to live in peace, man. We just want our babies to be safe. We just want, for lack of a better term, what Rodney King said, can we all get along, man? Like, I think at the end of the day, that's where we all want to get to. And we may argue vigorously or disagree on what we see or how to get there or whatever. But in my heart, I believe that that's the place where we all want to line up and just let everybody keep all of these families in prayer, because they need it. I mean, they really do. And if you pay attention to the hurt that you see coming from the family, all the families involved, that's, while we debate, and it is necessary, let's also remember to keep them in our prayers.
Can I add one thing about you guys? Today is May 6th. You guys' primary day. Am I not mistaken? Is that today y'all's primary voting day?
That's right.
So so next week, if you guys don't mind, if I'm invited on the show next week, I would like to kind of touch that and see what's going to happen to this footprint of where this is going to take us to the next part of it. Because I mean, as you were showing today, Nathan, as you were showing the video, or you had some screens up, it has top of the ticker was like, Vice President J.D. Vance endorses his half brother Corey Bowman for. It was on there. It was on the ticker. But I mean, I just yeah.
I'm sure he did.
It was
I
on there.
missed
It was
that.
on your
I'm sure he
programming
did.
for a little bit of time,
Hey,
man.
it would be pretty bad if he didn't. I think that would say a lot for Corey Bowman if JD Vance didn't give him his endorsement.
Actually, I'd be more inclined to support Bowman if Vance didn't endorse him.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how. I don't think it's going to be interesting for the record. I think it's a foregone conclusion that Aftab is going to get reelected to 4 more years. But I think it'll be interesting to see how these next few months do unfold. And I'm hoping that Bowman, if he is the one who winds up, which that's what I'm expecting, but I could be wrong. Brian Frank could surprise us. If it is Bowman who emerges, I hope to see him articulate a better vision for the city of Cincinnati and his candidacy. Like right now, he's mostly been talking about what he don't like, which I hate to say it is kind of a standard Republican sort of talking point. They don't typically tend to give much vision. They can only tell you what the last guy did that was wrong that they don't agree with. So I'm hoping that Bowman will break from that and actually be able to tell the people of Cincinnati that which I don't think they will, but if they actually did elect him mayor, what he would do for them. So I'm looking forward to challenging him and seeing others challenge him on his points of view.
Nothing. He's just like Trump. He ain't ready.
Trump wasn't ready, but he won the
he wouldn't do a
presidency.
thing
He
for
wasn't ready, but
Cincinnati.
he won.
He would mess up Cincinnati just like his brother is messing up the nation and the world. So, hey, with that, guys, thank you so much. We'll be back with you on Friday at 1 p.m. and got a special new guest with us. Ray's coming back as well, so it'll be us, Ray, and our special guest, new crew member, and looking forward to it. So, thanks for being here. Have a great Tuesday, and we'll catch up with you on Friday.